Hey everyone, so we are back. It is October 21st. It's Thursday, James. We made it.
Yeah.
We made it almost, or I would say it's hump week or hump day, but I know that's yesterday. Wednesday is hump day, but
Right.
still for us, we got a long weekend ahead of us, so
Yeah.
it's just a continuation, literally.
Yeah, we working all through the weekend for the most part. So
Yeah, and I have convocations at my church starting this week, so it'll be a busy week for us.
Yeah.
But today, I think we have a really hot topic. So you brought this to my attention, I think, while I was in Chicago, about a situation down in Rome, Floyd County, where the school system, and correct me if I'm wrong, there were some students, I guess, doing crazy things, but the only kids who looked like they got suspended were the kids who were African American.
All right. So the story goes, the article, in fact, let's watch the video.
Yeah, let's do that.
So at 6, Confederate controversy. Students caught on camera waving the rebel flag at Cusa High School in Rome. Fellow classmates now calling out school leaders for their response.
Some of them suspended for planning a protest. CBS 46's Haley Mason is in Rome unraveling the issues.
These students behind me aren't taking a skip day. They're actually suspended from school for planning a protest against racism that they say they experience inside their school and on campus in Floyd County. This is what started it off. Students reportedly flying Confederate flags and spewing racial slurs on campus at Cusa High School earlier this week. The black students and white and Latino classmates spoke up and planned a protest against racism.
I felt really disrespected how the school didn't do anything about it. And when we're not allowed to wear BLM stuff all over our stuff, and then they are allowed to carry a racist flag around.
Early Friday morning, police had the campus lined, keeping the student protest line back. Administration had warned the day before it would clamp down, making this announcement.
The administration is aware of tomorrow's planned protest. Activities of this kind will not be allowed here at Coosa High School.
The announcement threatened disciplinary action for even having a flyer announcing the protest.
Before my mother gets here.
Students tell us they were suspended for making protest plans and arguing with the administration about racial slurs and the flag. But students say those suspensions were only for certain kids, black students.
All the African Americans that was up there, they suspended them. Didn't suspend me. They didn't suspend her either, and we both disrupted all the 8th grade classes.
Their parents tell us they were served suspension papers not only by the principal, but by police. I made multiple calls to the school district with no response, so I looked into the state data for suspensions in Floyd County. In 2020, it breaks it down by race. 8% of black students were suspended, the highest number. 6% were 2 or more races, 4% white, 2% Hispanic. These students saying they want all of that to change.
The parents tell us they're upset to know their complaints have gone unresolved so far, and now their kids will have to miss homecoming after being suspended from school. We'll have more from the school's leadership on our CBS 46 app. Reporting in Floyd County, Haley Mason, CBS 46 News. Let's take a live look over it.
But you know, so my first time seeing that, and I'm even more in shock now because I think it was a couple of weeks ago, was it, Ryan, that we had Carol on, and Carol was with the Cobb County chapter of the Deltas. So let me get that right. But she's not a Delta, but she was working with them on this, and they did a project where they broke down every school in the state of Georgia, in the suspension and expulsion rates. And they were talking about how African Americans are suspended at 2 to 3 times higher than any other race, even though we don't make up majority of the school system. So I use Gwinnett as an example because it's a number that stuck out to me. Gwinnett County school system, African Americans make up 28% of the total enrollment, right? But when it comes down to the actual suspension rate, African Americans make up 49%. So just for everybody to know, by the end of this week, by the end of the day Friday, please go to our website. We're going to put that report on our website because I think this kind of speaks volumes to that report.
Well, since you brought the numbers up, all right, first and foremost, that's all took place, like the airing was October 8th. They don't come back. They had a 2-week suspension. They're just coming back to school
Today.
Friday.
Yeah, Friday.
22nd, or probably the following Monday. But, so this is how long that they got suspended for. So for 2 weeks. Now, according to, there's only 4 high schools in Rome. Coosa is ranked number 4.
This is the high school that these kids have come from.
Right. It ain't but 4 schools up there, and it's ranked number 4. It's ranked number 238 in the state. In the nation, it's 10,397th out of all high schools, and third in Floyd County. So in Rome, they're 4th out of the 4 high schools in the area. They're 4th, but then the county, they're number 3.
Yeah.
But these numbers are kind of crazy because now let me the student diversity. Okay, 38.3% minority enrollment, 61.7% white, 19.9% Hispanic, 12.5% black, 5% 2 or more races, and 1% Asian. And out of that 12.5%, you got 8% being, suspended. Now the numbers don't add up.
Yeah, but this is the thing about it for me is about when we talk about education and when we talk about minorities in school. First off, the first issue I have is the fact that there were a group of rights students that we see who initiated this by walking around with the Confederate flag and using racial slurs. And I don't know whether the article addressed it or not, but it seems like nothing happened to those students, right?
Nothing.
But then when this rally came up where African American students, along with some of their white counterparts now, wanted to say, hey, we wanted to protest that anti-racism that's going on in the school, then all of a sudden now it's a problem and the principal's saying, no, it cannot be done. We hear that on the audio that was placed out. And when they do it, and when they start complaining about it, the only students who got suspended were African American students.
That is correct.
So we have to start talking about, at some point, racism in our schools. And when I say racism in our schools, not only what we know from other students, and we know a case of like this that just recently happened, similar that we were involved in. But not only racism in our school, but I don't know, we have to be able to hold conversations about this topic where people are talking to each other versus talking over each other and talking around each other, if that makes sense.
Yes. Well, one of the things that, I was when I saw the story, I was just like, in fact, I got pretty upset about it because we're always talking about how the students are the future and, taking care and looking after our youth. And it's not we say, about a village, it takes a village. That particular village up there is not, being cared for. And they're part of our village. They're our children.
Yeah.
But where's the justice of it all? So the rebel flag, the Confederate flag is being out there, is being dragged around and flown on campus. Now, I'm not sure, but it seemed to me like that would be paraphernalia that shouldn't even be allowed on any school campus.
Yeah, and it's not like these students, from what I see, didn't have up and even if they did, how do you compare the two? Like, they didn't have up anything like a Black Lives Matter. I mean, and I think one of the students said we can't even wear BLM stuff to our school.
Right.
So again, but yet these students are allowed to march on the campus with a Confederate flag. And this goes back to when we talk about the conversation about white privilege.
Yes. And
people don't like to hear the conversation. Definitely a lot of people on the other side. There is such a thing as white privilege. There's things that white people will be able to do that I'll never be able to do. And I say that to say that we always talk about, or I always preach about, being able to look at it from somebody else's perspective, stepping outside of yourself and trying to see it from somebody else's perspective. There's a great part of America that like, even with this video, that they'll be like, oh, well, it's fine that our kids walked in there with Confederate flags, but when black people standing up there trying to protest when the principal told you not to, that's a step too far.
Right.
And there's people out there who will make that argument.
And they do it with adults, and they indoctrinate the kids like this. Mm-hmm. Now, a suspension like that, if you're a AP student and you're making good grades, or you're making really high marks, and you in line to be valedictorian come graduation, something like this can hurt.
Yeah.
Hurt your college career. It can hurt your, your chances of getting into college, and definitely, because you got suspended or something, it's on your record, and so your shot of being valedictorian goes out the window. And if you had perfect attendance throughout your education career, that's another thing that ends up being affected.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's, forget about my high school record, forget about my college record, forget about my attendance record. What about my pride, right? This is going after a young, so one of the things that we've been hearing so much about recently is we have to deal with our youth. We have to go after our youth. We have to work with our youth, right? And these are people who we have placed in a position of working with our youth, who are now telling our youth, don't think outside the box, right? Don't have a problem with racism, right? When it comes down your street. I don't know what kind of education that is, or what we're teaching, how we're teaching our children when that's the message that we're giving. And I'm not saying parents. The parents look like they were very supportive from the aspect of the school system.
Leadership.
And I know we've reached out to the Floyd County school system, and we're working now to try to have a conversation, and they're not doing it on a podcast, just in general conversation, because as leaders, definitely people who are involved in our community, this should be something that everybody should be able to hop on board and say, hey, this is not okay. And there's nothing, like we just talked about yesterday with the officer who was saying about the guy who was put out on the street. Like, what humane person will be able to say that's okay? What humane person will be able to say that it's nothing strange about only African American students being suspended when there were white Americans out there as well?
White and
Hispanics.
Yeah.
But we see that again and again and again, that when it comes to African Americans, our skin complexion seems to be a threat to some people. And even when I think about just the way the world is now, the biggest problem I think that white America has with black America is that white America doesn't have a problem with black America being successful. I think that white America has a problem with black America becoming the majority. And that's what scares them the most, because when you look at things that are going on now, when you look at what people are saying now, the biggest problem that people have is when we start talking about the majority shifting from one race to the next. That's what drives people crazy. That's what is out here. I mean, that's what President Trump ranted on, literally, when he was talking about Mexicans coming across the border, because there was a study that showed that that the Latin community was growing so rapidly in America that in the next 20 years they'll be the majority, right? That message scares a good portion of America. It doesn't scare me.
No.
And it doesn't scare me. I mean, but you got to think, for over 200 years, black people have lived in America where whites were the majority, and we were not scared by it. We still stood up in the presence of it, and we're still standing up in the midst of it. So, I mean, let's go, America.
When you're talking about white supremacy, it's a control of the power structure in our country. And to continue to maintain that, you still have to give the appearance that you are the majority when really you're not. And clearly you're not. And
can we actually, while we're doing that, can you go on Google and look up for me, like, as a world, the Earth, like, what, I want to know some of the percentages from Earth standpoint, population wise, like how much is like the African, like black people basically. I'm curious to know if we can look that up. But I mean, in America, I know there's still a majority, and I know I'm wondering around the world, is that the fact? But hey, I think this story with these kids are terrible. I think that we need to stand up against it.
It's I'm just thinking about the kids, their future. And how this is going to play out for them. See, and if the principal hadn't said anything and let the kids just go ahead and do the protests on campus, how much attention would that draw in their community? Probably not a whole lot.
Yeah.
However, the news only showed up not because of that they were having a protest. The news showed up because they got suspended and they didn't have the protest, or they had a protest and were suspended by it. But it was the suspension of only the black kids and not the white or the Hispanic. And now that put a bigger spotlight on the problem it magnified the situation, and it probably wouldn't have never been magnified had they allowed the kids to protest the first time.
And I mean, again, and it goes back to the whole principle of how we're raising our kids, right? I mean, I hear it all the time, and people say, we want to raise our kids to be able to freely think. We want to raise our kids to be able to have an opinion, right? I'm sorry, I'm just caught up on this real quick, but to have an opinion. But then when they do have an opinion, and when they do try to stand up for their opinions, just the way we shut them down, and we can't get it right now this easily. What I'm looking for, because I'm looking for the Earth itself.
12.8%.
Yeah, I'm looking for like the Earth itself, though.
12.8%. You're talking about the world, not USA.
Yeah.
You know me. I'm a rebel rouser. I'll go ahead and kick dirt and kick up some sand. But the thing is, man, at the end of the day, like you say, you want people to be able to know their rights and be able to express their rights and everything.
You can move that one down.
But it's, systematically you suppress their rights and, shut their mouths. And if you can do it often enough when to someone at a young age, you can start conditioning them to keep quiet as they get older.
Right.
And that's one of those tactics that is used against people who voice their opinions. They systematically try to start shutting them down and keeping them quiet. And when they can't, when you look at the examples of Malcolm X and Dr. King and others, and I'll just use those as they were assassinated and killed, but they could not control them to keep them, get them to keep their mouth closed.
Right.
So either you close it yourself or we close it permanently for you, and that's what took place. But at the end of the day, and some people will say that it's a know your place, or stay in your place. And it's unfortunate that even in 2021 they're still doing it. And this is just another example of what we've seen just here in the state of Georgia. And it's nationwide, but we're seeing it. It's starting to be closer to home for us at this point in time. So
I was looking up really quick. I think I have something here. So we know we just had a 2020 census,
right? And
that just came out. So they have information listed on the website. And I was looking at it here, but African Americans in the country only take up 12.8%, right? Yeah, 12.8%. I mean, I listen, I get it. I think that at the end of the day, we have to start talking about racism from a different perspective. Because it is happening, and our kids realize it a lot more than probably sometimes we do, because they're out there living with it every day, right? And it means something different, but disturbing. I hope Floyd County can get it right. I hope that these kids don't have to have this on their record, as you pointed out earlier today, and I hope that we as a nation can have the tough conversation on racism, and with an open ear. And not with a closed heart and closed ears.
Yeah, it's we can't be ostriches.
Right.
You cannot, especially in leadership, whether you're a principal or county commissioner or whatever your position might be, your personal feelings should not be at the office place when you are dealing with someone's child, or and it shouldn't be, but unfortunately, These are the kind of things that we have to deal with. So people bring their personal issues to work.
Right.
Whether you're a politician or a teacher, it doesn't really matter. These things happen, they take place. And but the thing is, at the end of the day, we have to know how to separate the two. And if you can't, and especially in law enforcement, if you can't separate your job from your personal feelings, then you probably shouldn't be in that position.
And definitely in education. I mean, education, the point of an educator is to give the facts and allow people to come up to the conclusion themselves.
It brings us back to the CRT conversation.
Yeah. And when we do that, and when we discourage that, I think that's when we fail our kids.
Yeah.
And we fail those who we're prized to educate, or we're given the we fail those who we're given the burden of educating.
Right.
If that makes sense. But again, I mean, it's a great topic. We probably need to continue it. Probably have some teachers on, and I think to be able to talk more about it. But we want to just remind everybody that we do have a super, super exciting event coming up, and now it's just 2 days. 2 days.
2 days away.
2 days away.
Actually, one for one day, for one of them.
Yeah, but the other one is a private event. So, I mean,
that's so very true.
So 2 days.
2 days.
We have our One Accord Conference coming up on October 23rd. So we know today's the 21st. That's 2 days away. We'll be hosting it at Courageous Church in Mableton, Georgia. So if you can join us at 4:30, join us as we come together to talk about faith, social injustice, and voter suppression. So I appreciate everything that you guys are doing. Appreciate you coming on today, James. And we look forward to seeing you there. Until tomorrow, be blessed.